fiery dolphins and flubbery whales, big floppy flippers and short floppy tails. I like getting splashed by my friend Shamu, 'cause best of all I like SeaWorld. I like whiskery walruses, big scary sharks, fun things to play on and sea lions that bark. I like the squeeze at flamingo knees. Best of all I like SeaWorld.
Holy shit! Tina! Bring me the axe!
Put your right hand in the box.
Power tasting berry!
You want to see dry land?
No more Mr. Nice Duck.
Shogun. Gordon's alive. You talking about the damn shark's mother?
Welcome to Cherry Bombs, the Underappreciated Movies podcast. This is a show where we rip the scarlet letter off of some unfairly maligned movies. And this episode, Jaws 3D, or Jaws 3, depending on how you first saw it.
True.
The shark is back, and this time she's eating SeaWorld. What are your first memories of Jaws 3D?
So the first time I remember seeing it was with my dad, back when it came out like on television.
Next Friday, something's out there, and it's not friendly.
What the hell is that?
It's on a rampage,
Jerry!
a feeding frenzy, and it's got an insatiable appetite.
Give me some medical attention here, quick!
Just in time for your summer vacation, Jaws returns to stalk an underwater seaside park.
No, right now!
Bess Armstrong, Dennis Quaid, and Oscar winner Louis Gossett Jr. star in the CBS Friday movie Jaws 3 next Friday.
For me, it was HBO.
Okay.
It was 2D, so Jaws 3 2D. I would have been like 8 years old. So whenever it first came out, and that was, I think I'd seen Jaws before that, like the real Jaws. Well, I shouldn't say the real Jaws because they're all real Jaws in their own way, but they're original Jaws. And for me, maybe it was because, I don't know why, maybe it was because it was a little bit more outrageous and child-friendly than the original Jaws, but Jaws 3D was Jaws to me for many years. I used to go through, remember the HBO guides we would get, the little square HBO guides? They would tell you what was going on, along with the schedules for the month. I would take that and I would go through it. I would circle every single time that Jaws 3D was playing for the whole month. And then I would religiously watch each time it was on. It was usually twice a day. So it was like once in the morning and once in the evening and the afternoon. And I know for a fact, because I remember this tape, I recorded it off the TV on an audio tape. This is before we had a VCR, way back in the day. So, you just lean the tape recorder up against the speaker on the console TV and flip the tape over every half an hour or whatever it was. I would record the whole movie and I would listen to that in the bathtub with like bathtub toys and recreate Jaws 3D.
Oh my God, it's amazing. You were really ahead of the time.
So Jaws, I think people are pretty much aware that the original Jaws came out in 1975, was directed by Spielberg, was one of the greatest movies ever made.
Right.
Probably one of the greatest things ever committed to film, period.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws.
It was outrageously successful. 123 million, and just in its initial release alone. Sort of the dawn of the modern day blockbuster before Star Wars.
Right.
Jaws 2, 78, directed by Jeannot Szwarc, was also a hit, made like 77 million.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, the legend continues. The all-new Jaws 2. See it before you go back in the water.
It's also actually a very good movie.
Yeah.
Jaws 2 is more disturbing probably than any Jaws movie.
Ooh, that's an interesting. There's
some pretty upsetting death in that.
That is true.
Do you remember the girl that's I can't get up. I can't get up. She's trying to get up on the sailboat.
Yes.
She gets eaten in front of that kid who's just screaming.
Right.
I guess there's a pretty good behind the scenes story. There's a lot of drama on Jaws 2. Maybe we'll do Jaws 2 one day. I know it's considered to be the best sequel and it made a lot of money, but I think it's still kind of maligned a little bit. Probably mainly because it's a sequel to Jaws. I mean, how do you top that? How do you even come close to Jaws?
Yeah, I mean, there's never been a shark movie better than Jaws.
Yeah. Jaws stands alone. There never will be any shark movie, or maybe many movies, period, that are as good as Jaws. Let's just go into a little bit of a weird history of Jaws 3D. David Brown and Richard Zanuck. You're laughing already.
I do, because David Brown has one of the greatest mustaches of all time. It doesn't follow any rules.
So David Brown, Richard Zanuck, the original producers of Jaws and Jaws 2, were pitching the second sequel. This time, I don't know what they were thinking, why they thought this was a good idea. It's a very Hollywood idea. The story is that David Brown, either David Brown or Richard Zanuck, I want to believe it's David Brown, saw Animal House, and he was like, I got a great idea. And he actually went to Matty Simmons, who was the publisher of National Lampoon magazine, and pitched to him Jaws meets Animal House. He said it was going to be a spoof of Jaws, and it would be called Jaws 3 People Zero. So Matty Simmons said, I hate it. But then he changed his mind. Probably money spoke louder than taste in that situation. And they actually began to develop Jaws 3 People Zero with National Lampoon. And basically, I read the script. It's online. It's like in pieces, but you can put it all together. And basically, it is a comedy spoof about filmmakers who are making a Jaws type movie. And in the script, the weird thing is the director is called Steven. The writer is flat out called Peter Benchley. And it actually opens with Peter Benchley diving into his swimming pool and getting eaten by a shark in his swimming pool.
Wow.
And it gets worse. It gets worse from there. It's basically like one big inside industry joke.
It's almost like, I wonder if they were like ahead of the game, because obviously now you have those Sharknado movies.
Yeah. It's a little bit like that. There's a David Brown. David Brown said that the studio's attitude was the spoof would have been a mistake, and that it would have been like, quote, fouling in your own nest. And then he said, we should have fouled the nest. That would have been golden, maybe even platinum. So after the fact, he still thought it was a good idea. I think it would have killed the franchise. But
that would have been
not to say that Jaws 3 and 4 didn't end up killing the franchise in terms of the public perception anyway. But first of all, the script was terrible. The script was awful. It actually ends with the shark out of water, showing up at the premiere outside the theater as the people are coming out.
Like, is he like upright, like on his like tail,
standing
or
on his fin? He's standing on his tail. It's horrible. It's horrible.
That's ridiculous.
Sid Sheinberg, remember back from our Howard the Duck episode, Sid Sheinberg, who was a major player on Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
He was going to play the president of the fictional studio in the movie. Joe Dante was considered to be the director of the film.
What?
Alec Guinness was going to star as a Jacques Cousteau type character named Pierre Cockatoo.
There's so much of that that's so good. Like I would be like, you want that shark to stand on its tail? You go right ahead, as long as you get me Alec Guinness. Can you imagine Alec Guinness's career at this point, where he's just like, he hates Star Wars, and they give him like the worst shark movie ever? Wow.
So
that's gold.
Yeah.
Man.
So needless to say, it didn't happen. It fell apart. The studio basically shut it down. Then the rights to produce Jaws 3 were bought by a TV producer named Alan Landsberg, who was this old-timey producer. He'd done a lot of television, National Geographic specials, and That's Incredible. Remember That's Incredible?
Yes.
Tonight, you'll see the remarkable story of this haunting crystal skull. It's more than 12,000 years old and was once worshipped by the Mayas. There are many who believe it still has magical powers.
He also produced Porky's 2.
Yes.
I knew you would like that.
I did like Porky's 2. Not 3 so much, but Porky's 2 was still okay.
They hired a writer to do a treatment, Gordon Trueblood. Get this. He had written 3 other films that we have high regard for. All TV movies. Tarantulas, The Deadly Cargo, which frequently plays on the Svengoolie Show. Savage Bees, and Ants.
Yes.
The Suzanne Summers Breathing Through a Straw.
Yes,
Ant
to keep
movie.
still from the ant. That is great.
The problem is ants. Regular little ants, like right here.
But we've always had ants.
Of course, everybody does. Ants are ants. Not these ants.
So he wrote the treatment, and it was going to be called Jaws 82 at that point. And it was going to be directed by Mel Stewart, who directed Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Ooh.
Is this not the most bizarre history of a movie that we've talked about so far?
Right? I mean, it's just wild to think of all these possibilities that this could have become.
So that fell apart, and they brought in a new writer to write a new script, sort of pseudo-based on the Gordon Trueblood treatment. And that was Richard Matheson, who was obviously a very well-known, highly regarded sci-fi, fantasy, horror novelist. He wrote I Am Legend and What Dreams May Come.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of Twilight Zone episodes, Amazing Stories episodes later on. He wrote the Star Trek episode, one of my favorite Star Treks, The Enemy Within, where Shatner is split into 2 Shatners.
Captain Kirk! I'm Captain Kirk!
He wrote a script. He claims he was forced by Universal to include Roy Scheider's characters' 2 sons, Sean and Mike, which he thought was, quote, dumb. They also wanted it to be the same shark that was electrocuted to death in Jaws 2, which doesn't make sense.
It does, and it certainly doesn't really connect that way. I mean, it doesn't.
Not at all.
No.
I always thought of Jaws the same way. It's like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, where it's like it's not so much a living organic thing that is stalking people. It's like it's inhabited by this.
It's just an entity. This
entity, yeah, or a
horror
force.
of the deep. Yeah,
exactly. So Matheson also really was determined to write a custom role for Mickey Rooney.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Mickey Rooney thing didn't work. He turned him down. Script was rewritten again, this time by Carl Gottlieb, who worked on the original Jaws and on Jaws 2, and wrote the great book, The Jaws Log.
Yes.
Which is still one of the greatest behind-the-scenes books ever.
I know. I met him. He's a great guy. You met him too, right?
I've not yet.
You've not met him? Okay, that's right. I bought because him and actually the director of Jaws 3, Joe Albus, they were there together at a convention in Chicago that we went to a couple of years ago, and so yeah, I met him and had him sign the Jaws logbook and everything.
That's awesome. Carl Gottlieb also directed a potential cherry bomb episode movie, a really funny movie called Caveman with Ringo Starr, which is great. So they brought in a director who this time would be Joe Alves, who was a production designer on Jaws. Jaws 2, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Escape from New York.
He was nominated for the Oscar for Close Encounters.
Was he?
For art direction, yeah.
So they hired Joe Alves to direct. It was his first movie, and actually, turns out it's his only movie that he ever directed.
Yeah.
The idea of Joe Alves goes back to Jaws 2, when the original director of Jaws 2, John Hancock, left mid-shoot. Alves almost co-directed it with the editor, Verna Fields, but the Directors Guild shot that down because neither of them were in the Directors Guild. They decided to not use any actors from the first 2 Jaws films, which, whether or not they decided that or people just refused to do it, is a question. I guess that will never be answered. Although Roy Scheider said that they knew better than to even ask him to do Jaws 3, and that he agreed to do Blue Thunder to ensure that he would be unavailable for Jaws 3. So, producer of Jaws 3 was Rupert Hitzig. Do you know what else Rupert Hitzig produced?
He did The Squeeze, but he also did one of our favorites, so The Last Dragon.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of. Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, an amazing movie. I actually did meet Rupert Hitzig at a screening with Joe Alves of Jaws 3. I went up to him and had him sign my Jaws 3 poster, and I guess I was so impressed and so sort of starstruck that I was talking to the producer of Jaws 3 and The Last Dragon that I meant to say to him, Jaws 3 is one of my favorite movies of the 80s, which I think is it's true. It's a totally reasonable comment. But what came out was Jaws 3 is the best movie of the 80s. Which is obviously absurd. But I didn't want to, how do you backtrack that? I didn't want to, I was like, well, okay.
Nope, now you got to leave it there and own that one, yeah.
I just left it there and owned it. And he looked at me and kind of gave me a look like, are you serious?
Son, have you only seen 2 movies?
Yeah, so I didn't backtrack it, but I like to think that now goes around. He was kind of a big personality, so he's probably going around telling people, Jaws, people say that Jaws 3 is the best movie of the 80s.
I've had someone tell me that personally.
Getting into more of the crew of this movie, the music was by Alan Parker, who for years I thought was the same Alan Parker that directed The Commitments. Totally different Alan Parker.
Yeah, didn't really do much filming. I think he only did what's Eating Gilbert Grape.
But yeah, you'll see this as a trend with these people that worked on Jaws 3. Most of them went on and just did TV afterwards. John Williams had obviously an assist because he did use some of the Williams themes.
Right.
But for the most part, it was all new music. And I have to say, the score ranks pretty high, very high on my list of favorite ocean movie scores of all time.
Yeah.
We feel this is a breakthrough film in 3D, certainly state-of-the-art. We've never seen pictures that look as well, and we know that the projection and the glasses are all going to make it very, very exciting filmic experience.
Here's the interesting thing about the photography on Jaws 3. We'll get a little bit into this with the 3D part. It is like one of the worst looking movies of all time. Do you agree?
That
is like the ugliest, grainiest, most out of focus, shittiest looking movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just because we grew up with it, we're used to it. Like that's what I expect of it.
I think that's got a lot to do with the way that it was shot and the 3D that they used. It was very rudimentary 3D at the time.
Right. Well, I mean, I can say this. I mean, because I have the 3D projector. So I watched the 2D the other day, and then last night I went down and watched it at the last second in 3D. And the 3D on there is a better picture than the 2D. By far.
The secret of 3D begins with a camera which has 2 lenses, 2.5 inches apart exactly, like our own eyes.
We need more?
The film records these images on top of each other, and with special 3D glasses, they magically become a 3-dimensional picture. The result is a sense of realism never before seen in movies.
So yeah, it was shot in 3D. That was one of the big pitches to get the movie actually financed, was let's do it in 3D. Jaws in 3D. Friday the 13th 3D had come out in 82.
Right, and they copy some of the gimmicks.
It was released in a year where there's actually quite a few 3D movies.
Yep.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. A new dimension in terror.
Space Hunter. Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. A whole new dimension in excitement.
Dino De Laurentiis presents Amityville 3D. Now, its terror takes on a new dimension.
There's a Starlog magazine article that I had read that said that the actors were hired as much for their temperament as for their acting ability, because I think they knew it was going to be a tough shoot, the combination of water and 3D photography. So as Mike Brody, son of Roy Scheider's character, they cast Dennis Quaid, who we know. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies, but I think for us, Enemy Mine is a big one.
Yeah.
Caveman. So there's that Carl Gottlieb Caveman connection again. Inner Space.
Yeah.
Dreamscape. Bess Armstrong was cast as the biologist Catherine K. Morgan, and she had done a lot of TV. She appeared in The Great Space Coaster.
It's the Great Space Coaster. Get on board on the Great Space Coaster. We'll explore.
She was also in The High Road to China with Tom Selleck. She was in the dreaded Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks.
Now, do you remember her also being in the movie? And it's terrible. It's so bad. It's not a cherry. It'll never be a cherry bomb. It's just an absolute bomb. But do you remember her in Second Sight? Remember that movie?
Oh, was that the Bronson Pinchot movie?
Yes. And of course, we should mention that she does have small roles in some of our favorite movies.
The best movie she was ever in is
Pecker?
Pecker.
Mary, these nice ladies have come to honor you. What a grace!
You're saying that yourself.
What do you mean?
You heard me, faker.
Mariolatry is not a joke.
It's just a matter of faith, ladies.
We can see her lips moving.
Full of grace! Heretic!
The very first movie that you and I ever saw together in the theater, John Waters Pecker.
Because you made me say it. You made me go up to the counter and be like, one for Pecker.
Simon McCorkindale was cast in the role of the adventure nature photographer Philip Fitzroyce. He did a lot of TV, Falcon Crest, Manimal, and he was also in the feature Sword and Sorcerer, which I always liked.
Wing Commander.
He was in Wing Commander?
Wing Commander, yeah.
Wing Commander, the Freddie Prinze Jr. movie.
Yeah.
Or the game.
No, the movie Wing Commander with Freddie Prinze.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to rewatch that and see if that could be a cherry bomb, because I remember liking that a lot.
Yeah, I remember liking that too. Again, to me, that was in that same category of like the weekend at Capitol Cinemas, and you walked into Wing Commander not knowing anything about it, and you walked out, and you're like, that was all right.
So the next cast member that deserves special place in movie history. When the Academy Museum opens in LA, there needs to be a room dedicated to this character. Not necessarily the actor, although he's great, but the character as portrayed by the actor. Lou Gossett Jr. as Calvin Bouchard.
Yes.
Calvin Bouchard, the director of SeaWorld, where the events transpire. Amazing. We all know he's been in classy things like Roots and Officer and a Gentleman. But really for us, Lou Gossett Jr. is Enemy Mine. It's Iron Eagle, Firewalker, Jaws 3.
Toy Soldiers.
Toy Soldiers, highly underrated Toy Soldiers. John Putch played Sean Brody. He went on to become a TV director of things like Beetleborgs. He was also an actor on a bunch of TV stuff like Seinfeld, Get a Life, Family Ties, Cop Rock. Also, he was on It's a Living.
Wow.
Leah Thompson as Kellyanne Bukowski, our old Cherry Bombs pal, Leah Thompson.
We love her.
If we ever did interview anybody on this show, it'd have to be Leah, because she's probably been in more of these movies that we talk about than anybody else. We could just do a whole episode with her.
And she loves these movies.
She owns up to these movies and loves them. So the second time I saw Jaws 3D in the theater, it was part of a triple feature with The Meg and Deep Blue Sea. Jaws 3D was a second movie, 35 millimeter prints, projected on an actual silver screen. And she showed up, not as a guest. She was unannounced. She showed up as an audience member, as a viewer, with her husband.
Oh, wow.
And her husband actually was a director who directed Some Kind of Wonderful. And she actually got up. They invited her to come up before the movie to introduce it. And she was wearing her Jaws 3 crew shirt that she still had.
Oh my God.
It was incredible. And then she still remembered the hoedown dance she does in Jaws 3.
Oh my God.
And she performed it in front of the audience.
See, she's so amazing. We just love her.
She's great.
This is where it all began. It wasn't Back to the Future or Howard. It was Jaws 3D.
And my husband's here, and he's never seen it.
So let's begin our journey through Jaws 3D.
So this is one of the first pop-out things is the Universal. When you're watching it like in the 3D version, the Universal logo and the globe MCA company pops up, and it's a pretty good effect. And then all of a sudden we have something here which is very similar to the Friday the 13th 3D, which is the red texts that pop out at you.
They kind of like coming at you. It's almost like a Superman style.
So, yeah, Superman, exactly, and it's a great effect.
It screams 3D. It's none of this subtle depth bullshit that you get in 3D now. It's real 3D. Like, it's popping out at you. Which, in my opinion, that's what 3D should be. Give me some real 3D. If I'm paying money for 3D, I want stuff on my lap.
I get you on that. And this truly has some of the best 3D. So the camera goes through the ocean a little bit, and then all of a sudden it comes up upon a fish, and you hear some crunching. And then you have this big red blood cloud, and then in the foreground we have this severed fish head that's mouth is opening and closing.
It's still moving. It's like a disembodied head of a grouper, and it's still like breathing, floating towards us.
Yeah, and it just is another one of the big 3D effects. And all of a sudden you kind of hear the Jaws theme a little bit as we're going through, and then all of a sudden the big, which is actually a set of Jaws, comes out in Jaws 3.
Yes. And then we go above water, and we see the water skiers at the SeaWorld Park. We meet, right off the bat, first character we meet is Leah Thompson, Kellyanne Bukowski. She's water skiing in like a pyramid with a bunch of other giggling female water skiers. She did all of her own water skiing, apparently, in this movie.
Yeah.
Just like she did all of her own singing and playing in Howard the Duck.
She's awesome. One thing I want to say about this movie is that, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean when I say it. Now, obviously, this movie takes place in a water theme park, but the movie itself is a theme park ride. Like, when I watch this, I get that same excitement like when you and I go to Universal Studios and we watch the live action Waterworld show. I get that same feeling with this. Like, I feel like that's the show that's being put on for me.
You're sitting in the bleachers and you're watching Jaws 3, the show.
Yes, exactly.
So we learn that this is the opening of what is a new SeaWorld. There's a orientation going on. There's a woman walking the new hires through things.
And you find out that the exhibit that's being built is being built in a lagoon underwater.
This is the Undersea Kingdom. 4 years under construction at a cost of more than $34 million. 4 pressurized viewing tunnels radiate out into the lagoon. There's the sunken Spanish galleon, Jonah's Marine Funhouse, the deep water coral forest, all connected to the hub, Central Control. And a deluxe restaurant and cocktail lounge, all 40 feet below the surface.
What's interesting about that scene is very brief, and they describe what it is, but it's sort of like that Titanic simulation sinking at the beginning of Titanic, where it's all laid out for you, so you know kind of the geography of everything. Yeah. So when later everything happens, it makes more sense geographically. We meet Calvin Bouchard, as played by Lou Gossett Jr. It's never explored, but there's a reference made to the reporters to avoid referencing his colorful past.
Mr. Bouchard, is there anything special going on opening day?
Well, this afternoon, at the main gate, we'd be pleased to announce the welcoming of Mr. Philip Fitzroyce.
Oh, really?
No lie, boys and girls. He gonna be here. Now we got drinks at the bar. They free. Come on, follow me.
Then the first time we see the shark on screen is one of the best shots of the movie. It's him following the water skiers. It's such a great shot.
And it sneaks into the lagoon. So as they're closing the gate, the shark sneaks into the lagoon area.
Jesus. Overman, I thought you said those tracks were secure.
Hey guys, I welded the damn thing myself. You
screwed
Something's
up.
hung the gate up.
Better get Mike Brody out here. Boy, is he gonna be pissed.
And now we this opening of the film is very like Fast and Furious. We're meeting characters like crazy as the world is being built. So we meet Mike Brody, played by Dennis Quaid, who's sort of operations supervisor.
Oh boy. Knock the son of a bitch right off the track.
Well, look, just secure the damn gate, all right? Think you can handle that?
We meet Kay. She's a senior biologist, Bess Armstrong.
Hi, Mike.
Hey.
I'll be with you in a minute, darling.
All right.
We learn that she's a thing with Mike Brody. They're a couple. We meet Cindy and Sandy, the dolphins, who don't want to go in the lagoon because they somehow know the shark's in there.
Come on, Cindy. Come on, Sandy.
We meet Philip Fitzroyce, who is sort of a outlaw Steve Irwin crocodile hunter type, or like a cutthroat Cousteau.
Philip the Great.
I am, of course, able to combine business with pleasure, which they tell me is the secret to a long and happy life.
He arrives with his crony assistant Jack Tate, who, it must be said, subtitles are required, unintelligible. His accent is completely unintelligible.
My governor's the 16th Earl of Edenfield.
That's how we earn our bread.
What am I, bloody Porter?
Have you not? Come on, you bloody bastard! Answer me!
Socialist! The gates can't hold much longer.
We meet Sean Brody, who's the brother of Mike Brody. These intros just come fast and furious.
Hey! 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 How you doing? All right! Brother the cowboy.
All right, then we see Shelby Overman, who is a sort of mustachioed muscle man who works with Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
He's fixing the gate that the shark busted, and he's attacked by the shark. And we get a great 3D shot of his severed arm floating up.
Yep.
The thing about that arm is that gnarly, sharp bone sticking out of it.
The bones are coming at you, yes.
And then we go to maybe the second best location in the movie, other than the Undersea Kingdom, which is a sort of marine-themed, tiki-themed country western bar.
Yes. Yeah, so you have, you got, Kay, Mike, and Sean. They're having some beers. And then Sean notices that Kelly is playing a game. So what they're doing is that's thing where you press your hands together and then you can try to push the other person off balance. So she's knocking people off for beers, and
it's like a confrontation. It's like a confrontational patty cakes.
Yeah, it's
called Standoff. Apparently has a name.
Hey, they're playing standoff.
Uh-oh. My brother considers himself to be the standoff champion of New England.
And the Western States.
It's like the PG version of what Seagal does, on Deadly Ground. So you play for beers, and so Leah Thompson takes out like this big tall guy that's 3 times her size, and then Sean comes in there and
This is for beers. You buy them?
Ready? Mike flies open.
Well, it's not only a game of balance, it's a game of deception.
and that's all you need. And then now they're into each other.
Then we cut away to thieves sneaking into the lagoon, which seems like a callback to the original Jaws a little bit. Even though they weren't thieves, they were trying to... Remember the guys that were trying to catch the shark with the meat that they stole from the wife?
Right.
But these guys are actually in a rubber dinghy, and they're going out into the lagoon to steal coral.
So then you have some of the other little 3D minor gags in that sequence. The seaweed kind of pops at you, and then there's like this...
It's like a reed.
Yeah, just a reed. And bear in mind that a lot of these 3D shots where the camera just pushes up on it. It's like intended just to poke you in the eye. The camera's just like, look at this seaweed. Pow. And it's popping out. And
The turtle.
The turtle, little frog poet jumps out. Yeah, just like little things like
The
that.
best thing about the frog jumping into the frame is that somebody gasps. Who gasped? Because it immediately cuts to the thieves and they're already out in the lagoon. So is it the cameraman?
Right. And so while this is going on, while they're stealing the coral, we cut back to Sean and Kelly, and now she's stripping down to her. I don't know if she's got a bikini on or if it's underwear. And so she tries to get him to go swimming in the lagoon, but then Sean is like, I really don't like the water. And, because they bring up, the incidents from Jaws 2 a little bit there.
Understandable.
Sure. Traumatic.
Something that happened when I was a kid. I don't go in the water.
I bet I can overcome your childhood fears.
But you know what gets him in the water.
The sex. So yeah, it's like any phobia can be cured by sex.
My boots.
Kick them off, cowboy.
Meanwhile, in the lagoon, not too far from where they're at, the coral thieves get eaten by the shark.
Yes, and there's a great effect of their raft just being punctured and swallowed up.
Yeah, the shark eats the boat too.
So then we cut back to the next morning here. Everybody seems to be hungover.
Coffee? Just throw it in my eyes. It'll work faster.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you stay up all night working at your childhood phobias.
Then all of a sudden, like, the big red bat phone rings and answers, and who is it? None other than Calvin Bouchard saying Shelby did not show up to work, and so he's got to go and see what's going on.
You tell Shelby Overman for me. He can take a flying leap at a rolling donut on a gravel driveway, you hear?
Oh, hold it just a second. Didn't he come home last night?
No.
Well, he didn't show up here either. I figure he's home hungover.
I tell you, the man's trash, and I don't want him around my place. Hi, darling. He's gone. You take his stuff.
Charlene, what's going on, huh?
Yeah, Charlene shows up, who is Shelby's girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh, he's got to be cheating on me or something, little bastard."
What was it? What did she say? She thought he was cheating with the girl from the souvenir stand.
He's messing around with that little bitch down at the souvenir stand. It's going to be his ass.
So then they decide that they're going to go inspect the lagoon and see if they can find out where he's at.
They go down to mini sub.
Control room, submersible is now entering the lagoon.
Control, this is Venture 1. We're at 25 feet headed for the Spanish galleon.
I can see you now. Hi, Mike.
You get some more of the 3D effects with this thing as it swings around. And
get some great miniatures in this sequence. Did you also get some not so great composites?
Yeah, the composites are awful. They're just terrible.
Literally, they're like dissolving before your eyes. It's awesome.
Right.
They do look better in 3D, but it still makes me happy.
They're wonderfully awful.
Apparently the miniature, it wasn't just the vehicles, but obviously the whole undersea kingdom was built in miniature. It was filmed on a smoke stage to simulate water. They actually shot a lot of the miniatures against green screen, which was unusual at the time. Usually it was more blue screen back then, but they had to shoot green screen because of the water element. You couldn't shoot blue.
You think he could have gotten trapped in the Spanish galleon?
He could have gotten caught in the superstructure. Would have kept him floating topside.
So then we see the Spanish galleon, which still to this day baffles me slightly. How deep is the lagoon, first of all? Because this is like a massive pirate ship. It's huge. It seems very elaborate for something that they're just going to sink in an underwater exhibit that no one's going to see. It's not like they have dive tours.
Yeah, right? Like, they got, like, this Goonie ship, like, in the bottom of the thing that no one is going into, and you can't see past, like, 10 feet out of the window anyway.
Calvin Bouchard spares no expense.
Yeah, no expense. That's true. He's always in it. He's about the fine dining and the drinks, and, the no expense. So they're in the ship kind of looking to see if they can find Shelby, and the dolphins are going crazy. They're just like, oh my God, get out of here, get out of here. And then all of a sudden you see the shark show up. And so while the shark is going to make an attempt on them, the dolphins come by and they're able to grab their fin, and the dolphins pull them away.
There's that great shot above water when the dolphins are pulling them away and the shark fin is right behind them.
Yes.
That's so good. And then my all-time favorite from the movie, I remember from when I was a kid, it's still effective, is when the shark smashes its snout into the gate just as the gate is closing.
What the hell is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that?
Calvin's dinner is interrupted. They tell him about the shark, which he's not happy about.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Mr. Bouchard.
And now, wait a minute. We're having dinner here. It better be important.
It is, sir.
Fitzroy suggests they hunt and kill the shark on camera.
Alvin, they die magnificently.
That would really be a spectacular event, no doubt about that, huh?
Kay, of course, objects.
No.
No. What do you mean, no?
Well, I don't know if it's occurred to any of you all, but there isn't a great white alive in captivity anywhere.
This is nuts. Now, white sharks are killers. I know them, for God's
Mike.
sakes. My father, my brother, myself. They're murderers. No, Kay.
Okay. Say he kills it. Well, that's it. It's one shot, over, gone. But a live great white. Now, you think about that, Calvin. Nightly bulletins on the progress of the killer shark. Pictures of us nursing it back to health and lowering it into a holding tank. Now, that's world news. You think of the lines at the gate.
So they set off on a mission to tranquilize and capture the shark, and we get that hypodermic needle 3D squirt effect.
Just squirt it, directly into the camera for no reason. Just it's a great effect.
This is the only time the case of scientific intelligence I would question is that she thinks she can wear a mesh shark suit and that's going to protect her from a great white shark bite.
Well, Fitzroy suggests that he goes, they won't be able to bite through it. She'll just feel pressure.
So she might just get a little squeeze.
They argue over whether or not they should take grenades down. And our favorite Jack Tate says something completely unintelligible that even Dennis Quaid can't understand.
What are those?
Nose bumps.
They're what?
So they go into the lagoon, and the shark emerges. It attacks Kay. Apparently the mesh suit did work because she survived.
Yes, that's true.
Dennis Quaid fires a harpoon straight at the camera.
Again, reminiscent to Friday the 13th when he fires when Jason fires the harpoon at the girl in the lake.
They managed to tranquilize the shark, so it's successful.
Calvin.
Catherine is fine, Philip is fine, Jack is fine, Dan and Liz are fine. I'm okay too.
But is the film okay?
It's absolutely first rate, Cal. I think you'll be very happy.
Is everyone okay? Did look pretty dangerous down there.
We cut to opening day of the park. We go into the Undersea Kingdom for the first time.
This is the entrance to the Undersea Kingdom. An incredible complex of underwater tunnels that show you firsthand the miracles of the deep. There's no extra charge for this unique attraction. Our underwater tunnels are not only fun, but informative.
There's also, for some reason, in this science-driven park, there's a recorded narrator that's telling the story of Jonah and the whale.
You know, I missed that.
Consumed alive in history, Jonah found out what it was like to live in the belly of the ocean's greatest animal.
Yeah, it's like the Jonah and the Whale exhibit or something. Like it's some kind of fusion of SeaWorld Science and the Creation Museum or something. I guess it's a little something for everyone. So anyways, Kay finds out that Calvin has put the shark on display prematurely. She races over.
Oh, God. Excuse me.
While alone is a predator unequaled in the animals.
Excuse me. What is he doing here?
Calvin ordered him moved.
Why didn't he just ask me? Why did he go ahead on his own?
Now, well, I just want to say, I gotta describe this lagoon that this shark is in. This is a shark, and the pool that this thing is in is like 2.5 feet deep.
And people can walk right up to the edge and put their hands in.
So you can pet the shark if you really wanted to. There's no gate or anything. Everybody's just leaning on the rocks and on the edge. But then the shark has like a stroke or a heart attack or something and just kind of flops over.
Well, I mean, it's in 2.5 feet of water.
Man, get a hold of my aerator now! Come on, Danny, get the back.
Just a minute, please. Remain calm. That's Dr. Morgan and the assistant members of our staff. Please don't interfere in any way.
Nobody notices there's a problem until Kay jumps in that the shark had a stroke, and they just try to like walk it around the pool. The shark just flips on its back, and it's dead. Its fin is down, everyone, and it's dead.
It's dead.
And everyone is just in horror, like, oh my God.
It's a sad, sad moment. We feel bad for the shark. Maybe for the first time in a Jaws movie ever, we're made to feel sad for the shark, and we're made to hate the people for what they did.
Right.
Which I think, actually, if you look back on this movie, it's a very progressive movie in that sense. Because it is very anti-animals in captivity.
Yes. Very
because
true.
Ultimately, you know, you can't blame the shark in this movie. Either the sharks, and we'll get to the second shark, but it's kind of like Orca, the movie. It's more like Orca than it is like Jaws, and the people bring this on themselves.
This is true. I mean, like, what was the movie Blackfish?
Yeah.
You know, same thing on that. About just how we shouldn't keep such large animals in such small captivity and stuff like that. So now we cut to some fun underwater shots of the Undersea Kingdom.
The Spanish galleon plays host to a myriad of colorful fish that SeaWorld has assembled from the different oceans of the world.
The families are looking out the portholes, admiring all the cute fish and the pretty coral, and then what happens?
And one of the greatest scenes in this movie, I beg you to watch this movie if we haven't encouraged you yet, specifically for this scene. So these three girls are watching through one of these porthole bubbles.
Oh, yeah. That looks like a butterfly. It's pretty, huh? You're right.
And they're watching the fish, and then all of a sudden, Shelby's head and torso that's torn to pieces pops up. And the girl starts screaming, and the head's really close to the wall. And for some reason, there's this quick shot of somebody forcing this girl's face into the window as close to the head as possible. And it's like you either like back off or go down the hall, but someone just shoves her shoulder and head into the glass, and she just like, ah! They're doing like an autopsy on Shelby's body. So we get this great looking corpse of Shelby. Like, it's just nothing but muscle and bone, and bugs are crawling out of his face. And Kay realizes that it's not the baby shark that did this. It's just too big of damage to do. So then we
cut to the Neptune room, which is a fancy underwater restaurant, seemingly built just for Calvin Bouchard.
I mean, like huge windows to the open lagoon and things like that. So Kay and Mike show up, and they're in a panic. He's like, "Calm down, we're having drinks."
Calvin, I got bad news.
Keep your voices down. Sit down. Sit down. Was it the shark?
It was a shark. It was a shark with a bite radius about a yard across.
Don't be silly. Indicate a shark of some 35 feet in length.
You said it exactly.
So she explains. She goes, you know, it's not the baby shark that did this.
Our shark couldn't have killed Overman. Its mother did.
Leading to the best line in the movie. The best line might be the best line of any movie in the 80s.
You talking about some damn shark's mother?
It's the damn shark's mother.
Damn shark's mother.
The delivery of that line is everything.
Overman was killed inside the park. The baby was caught inside the park. Its mother is inside the park.
The damn shark's mother shows up at the window,
She
smiling.
looks like she's knocking on their door. They're like, look at her. There she is. So now that they're all completely aware and know for sure that the mama shark is out in the lagoon, then they go into a panic. So Mike runs out, grabs a golf cart, throws the popcorn boy out of it.
Hey, what are you doing?
But then he just crashes it.
Well, he almost hits two kids in dolphin carts. And then, so he's running, and he's trying to tell everybody, get out of the water, get off the beach. They're doing a show, right? So Mike is interrupting the show, yelling things like, get out of the water, fulfilling his dad's duties.
The shark pursues the water skiers.
Get it down! What do you think? There's something back there! A shark!
So the shark starts attacking the skiers, knocks them off. Panic ensues.
Kelly and Sean are in the bumper boats, and the shark attacks the bumper boats. Kelly is knocked in the water and bitten. And they're both rescued by Fitzroyce and our old friend Jack Tate.
So Kelly's got like a huge gash.
Oh, that's a nasty gash, too.
Yeah, it's a pretty graphic one.
Twist that tourniquet tight and hold it there.
Goddamn shark. I'm here. You're gonna be okay.
Meanwhile, Calvin decides to close up shop for the day.
Hello out there. This is Calvin Bouchard. May I please have your kind attention? Due to technical difficulties, it has become necessary for us to temporarily close the Undersea Kingdom. Now, for those of y'all who are still in the underwater portion of this park, please follow your guides, and they will point out the most convenient and accessible exits.
Where the hell is the nearest accessible exit? We're underwater.
And as the guide is taking the tourists out of the tunnel, Mama Shark comes.
Daddy, look at the fish! Holy shit!
And she just torpedoes the tunnel.
It starts leaking heavily.
They seal off the watertight door, so now it's like the room's half full of water and they can't get out. So either they're going to end up drowning or running out of oxygen. So they have to find a way to patch the leak so they can get these guests out of the park.
So meanwhile, Dennis Quaid's team is working on a tunnel patch to get the people out. Fitzroyce again proposes luring the shark in and killing it.
Jack and I are going to lure him back into the pipe, close the gates, and then dispose of him at our leisure. Meanwhile, you can weld your tunnel patch, and then Calvin can evacuate the civilians.
And they decide to do that now, so they mount a mission to kill the damn shark's mother. For some reason, Jack Tate is the one that outlines the plan, which, again, is totally unintelligible. You can't understand a word he's saying.
And I'll rig the lifeline. Just let the pumps push you out, and use the rope to pull yourself back in. And why don't I do all the filming?
Then it gets confusing. It's really hard to take notes during this. There's so much going on.
There's so much going on. So while Fitzroyce is trying to kill the shark, Mike goes underwater and starts to weld a patch.
Meanwhile, Fitzroyce is immediately eaten.
Right, and by the way, it's one of the coolest eatings of a shark movie because
camera's inside the shark's mouth.
He's like goes in the mouth feet first, but like we have like this inside view of the shark's mouth.
And then Fitzroyce does not come back out, obviously, because he's been eaten by the shark.
Correct.
And Jack Tate completely freaks out.
Yeah, then we Governor! So for some reason, Kay at the last second decides she's going to go help Mike fix this patch.
Catherine, what are you doing?
I'm going down there.
Are you crazy?
He needs eyes in the back of his head, Calvin.
She goes in the water, she helps him. and they're trying to get back into the facility while Mama Shark is in pursuit of them.
Calvin tells his nephew to shut the pumps down.
Don't suffocate the bitch. Shut down the pumps.
Are you sure?
Why don't we blow it up?
Listen, nephew.
Which is great because I like the fact that he hires family.
It's a $2.5 million turbine that's not going to go up in smoke because of some damn fish.
You know, so because he doesn't want any shit. He probably doesn't want to pay him a lot, so that's probably why he hires.
That's probably true. Yeah. He probably gets a discount.
Yeah, so you're right. So that happens. Yeah, so then Kay and Mike make it back into the control room, and then the patch works. All the guests are freed from the tunnel.
But it's not over yet.
It's not over yet. This is the shark is still in this lagoon here. We have a problem. And so the mom shark just decides she's going to ram the control room. So we have what in the making of they call the money shot.
Yes. How many times in this great HBO vintage making of special do they say money shot?
Just 8 minutes long, and they say money shot like 30 times.
In Hollywood, this is called the money shot. But there's another reason why it's called the money shot. And Home Box Office is here to show you just how difficult getting the money shot can be. Making sure the money shot comes in on time and on budget, it's that kind of realism that makes a money shot pay off. In the film, the money shot lasts only 20 seconds.
And we got to get it because that's the big money shot in the film.
They still haven't got the money shot. Of course, they finally did get the money shot. Although the money shot proved to be expensive, it also proved to be exciting.
So the shark comes in, and she's just going to ram the control room window. And all of a sudden, they all start screaming in slow motion, which is fantastic.
And the shark's coming in slow motion too, which looks pretty cool in 3D.
Awesome, right? Because the glass breaks and it goes everywhere.
Totally awesome in a different way in 2D. But as it hits the glass, it stops moving.
Right, yeah. All she needed to do is break the glass. That's all she needed to do. She's very efficient. The whole place starts filling up with water. So Kay and Mike are able to put their scuba masks on and breathe. The nephew gets pulled in by Mama Shark.
Oh, the nephew.
And Calvin saves the other girl that's in the control room. Now, bear in mind, we're in the lagoon. We're underwater.
We must be pretty deep considering how big that Spanish galleon is.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's deep. I mean, you got to be at least 20 feet. Let's just say 20 feet at best. Let's just say underwater.
20 feet? Way more than that. That Spanish galleon is like 75 feet tall.
But Calvin grabs her and just swims away. To where? Yeah, so they're fighting with the shark. The shark comes back in after eating the nephew, kind of poking the head in. Mama Shark trying to grab at him.
Oh, that great stop motion shot of the shark with his head in the control booth with the tail flipping around.
And then, just this wonderful shot. The shark opens the mouth, and in there we see Fitzroyce. The body's still in there, but he's gripping onto one of those grenades. So Mike sees this and takes the opportunity to get like this hook. You kind of jam it in the shark's mouth, trying to pull the pin, and eventually he gets it. And then you have this great 3D effect of the shark just exploding, and it's like the shark's dentures.
They just hang there, suspended. Yeah, it's incredible. Dennis Quaid and Kay surface, and that's when he says, "We know that Calvin made it."
Yeah, and I mean, like, where is Calvin? Like, they're in the middle of this lagoon. Like, he just pops up. He's like, "Oh, he made it." Where? Where did he make it? Is he just trying to calm her down? You know.
What's funny is that he's so sure that Calvin made it, even though there's no evidence of it. But then Cindy the dolphin shows up, and Kay's flipped out about where's Sandy the dolphin, and immediately Quaid is like, "Oh, she didn't make it."
but both dolphins do show up. And then there's this. there's like, you know, there have been some fantastic family shots in film, but this one, the dolphins, like, for some reason, it's almost like the dolphins don't know what's going on and think that the show is still on or something like that, because they jump out of the water and they just spiral into the air. And Kate throws up her hands like, "We did it!"
And there it is, Jaws 3D, a genuine cherry bomb.
Man.
So good.
A creature alive today has survived millions of years of evolution. It lives to kill, a mindless eating machine that will attack and devour anything. One terrified you like nothing you have ever experienced when it captured your imagination and tapped your fear like no movie before it. Then, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, two continued the legend and spread the fear. Next summer, nature's most terrifying creature takes on an all-new dimension in an all-new adventure. And for the first time, the terror of Jaws will not stop at the edge of the screen. Jaws 3D. The third dimension is terror.
So to promote the film, they had released some 3D trading cards.
Yes.
Each pack came with a tiny pair of 3D glasses. And it was kind of a scam in a way. I have a box of these. I think you have a couple packs too, don't you?
Yeah, you sent me some.
So the card itself is like a traditional movie trading card where you have an image from the movie. And you flip it over, and the 3D part is like just like a line drawing of a shark. And that's the 3D. So it's not actually 3D from the movie. It's like line drawing 3D. Very rudimentary line drawings of sharks.
Yeah.
If you put the red blue glasses on, you get a little bit of 3D pop, but still a cool concept. They also had they produced a behind the scenes documentary that I think was syndicated on different channels. It was called Sharks Don't Die, and it was hosted by Lou Gossett Jr. It was essentially a behind the scenes documentary, although they did get into other things as well. It's kind of a mixed bag. It's very dated and uncomfortable in some ways. There's a lot of bogus, scare lies about the rise of shark attacks and shark populations since the release of Jaws. I actually think that the shark population declined since Jaws. Wow. And the rise of shark attacks probably was due to people paying more attention to them thanks to Jaws. But that kind of bogus scare tactic stuff that gets people to go see a movie about a killer shark.
Right.
It also, at the worst part, it features an idiot boat captain bragging about capturing and killing 3 great white sharks. The guy's a complete ignorant moron. He would be convicted today. It's a mixed bag. It reveals the stresses that the dolphins were under during the shoot, which is kind of downplayed in the special, but it's pretty evident from the footage. It does really make a case for these situations for like CGI dolphins in today's day and age, rather than using actual animals.
Right.
And of course, the SeaWorld Shamu stuff is pretty uncomfortable now, to say the least. But you can't really get around that. That Bess Armstrong riding Shamu and all that, uncomfortable. It doesn't age well. Let's just say that documentary. Although there is some great behind the scenes footage. You get Lou Gossett Jr. talking constantly about how sharks might be immortal, which is hilarious. And my favorite part of the whole thing is Dennis Quaid refers to the shark as Jaws.
Yes.
I play Mike Brody, chief engineer at SeaWorld. And I've been here for the last 2 years. My job is just winding up until Jaws gets into the sea park.
Like it's the same one.
Yeah, right. There's also a cross promotion with Shredded Wheat, of all things.
Yes, the Shredded Wheat one. Yes.
At first blush seems kind of confusing, but I guess the whole shredded part kind of works. If you think about like Leah Thompson and Shelby Overman and the nephew.
We daren't show them here. 4 horrifying scenes from Jaws 3 on the backs of Shredded Wheat packs. And free inside, 3D glasses that bring them hideously to life. Special packs of Shredded Wheat. Collect them at your peril.
So Jaws 3D was released July 22nd, 1983, had a budget of $18 million and a box office of $88 million. So you may ask yourself, why is this on cherry bombs? It's not exactly a bomb. However, the perception, this is one of those where the perception of the movie as being bad
unfortunately
overrides kind of however much money it might have made at the time. Because a lot of movies make money based on the name alone, but then people are like, that was crap, that was terrible. Right. It opened against, well, it was number 1 actually on its opening weekend, kicking Staying Alive to the number 2 spot. Number 3 that weekend was Return of the Jedi, followed by Class, followed by a re-release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Wow.
It grossed $13 million in its opening weekend, topped out at $45 million domestically. The second week is kind of where things start to fall apart. It dropped 45%. It was bumped out of the number 1 spot by National Lampoon's Vacation. It precipitously declined, and apparently it was pulled from theaters due to its decline, which seems odd, but I guess if they're making room for more movies, that's the way it works. So it started strong. Everybody hated it, apparently, and it died. It was nominated for 5 Razzies. Now, this seems to be a trend with these movies we're talking about. They're always nominated for Razzies. Yeah. This time it was Worst Picture, Worst Director for Joe Alves, Worst Screenplay, Richard Matheson, which is funny that Carl Gottlieb he avoided the bullet on that one, and Gordon Trueblood. Richard Matheson got nailed because he was the biggest name, I think.
Right.
Worst New Star for Cindy and Sandy the Dolphins.
You gotta go attack the fish.
That's terrible. And then the most baffling one to me, this is like when Howard the Duck was nominated for Worst Song. Worst Supporting Actor, Lou Gossett Jr. as Calvin Bouchard. Man. That is absurd, obscene even.
Come on.
1983 had a great number of sequels, and for our annual Worst Movie Show of the Year, we're going to focus on 6 of the worst. And Roger begins with one of his least favorites, Jaws 3D.
Well, our first stinker was about a man-eating shark, and this one eats up audiences and spits them out. Jaws 3D was the 3rd movie to star a great white shark and the 2nd one to make the shark boring.
Leonard Maltin called it a road company Irwin Allen type disaster film. Similar to the 1955 sequel to Creature from the Black Lagoon.
It kind of is. I mean,
right.
Variety called it tepid, which is a slap. Janet Maslin called it harmless but unsurprising.
Oh my God.
I had trouble finding reviews for this movie, actually. Most of the reviews that are out there are the sort of contemporary internet site blogger type things that aren't really relevant to our purposes. Of course, those are always hyperbolic and gleefully hateful and all that. But there wasn't really any reviews that are relevant to the time period that it came out. Richard Matheson, the man who wanted Mickey Rooney to be in Jaws 3, let's not forget that, said he was unhappy with the finished film. He said, I wrote a good outline, a good script, I'm a good storyteller, and if they had done it right, if it had been directed by somebody who knew how to direct, I think it would have been an excellent movie. The so-called 3D just made the film look murky. It had no effect whatsoever. It was a waste of time.
Come on.
Apparently, the gulping grouper, he must have come in late.
Right? Those opening credits should grab you. Come on.
So the title was eventually changed to Jaws 3 for the TV and video, obviously. It's not 3D. Eventually, they released it just recently, the last few years, on Blu-ray as a special feature to the main feature.
Yeah, it's a special feature, which is kind of weird. But it is good 3D, though. It's the kind you see like today in the theater.
Frequently, here in LA, there have been screenings of Jaws 3 in 3D. There's a DCP out there going around that's been screened a lot. That's the first time I ever saw it in 3D was the DCP.
Okay.
And then I saw an original Jaws 3D 35 millimeter film print from '83 in 3D, projected at the Egyptian Theater, and that was with the cardboard glasses, I think.
Oh wow!
And that was way better than the DCP, in my opinion. I mean, it still gave you a headache no matter what, but it was way better.
Wow, that'd be cool to see like that on a big screen again like that.
Yeah, it was great.
I like that.
I mean, it still looked awful. The quality of the image still looked terrible in the original print. So I don't think it's got anything to do with transfers. It's part of the charm.
The only other time I saw it in the theater was at the Time Cinema that was by us, which was a theater that would show old school stuff during the week, and then it would have like Friday night freak shows and whatnot.
Was it 3D?
It was 3D.
Well, if you've seen it once in 3D, then you're
Right.
set, because most people will never get to see Jaws 3 3D in the theater.
This is true. It's sad.
Jaws 3, however, was not the end of the Jaws franchise. There was one more film.
Man's deepest fear has risen again. Jaws, the revenge. This time, it's personal.
Even though Dennis Quaid, they talk about whether it's the same shark or not. This one, on the poster, it does say this time it's personal.
Personal. This time it is personal. Make no mistake about it. It's not a coincidence this time. Maybe the first two sequels were coincidences, but this time he's actually like angling for her. He's going to finish this family off.
Right.
When it came out, I loved it. I was all over that movie. Of course, now I can recognize it's actually not a great movie, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody says it is. There's a lot to like in that.
Well, you got Michael Caine.
Lance Guest plays Michael Brody as a biologist himself, and he's married to someone who's not Bess Armstrong. It's not Kay.
Yeah.
So we don't really get a bridge in terms of, it's not like today when a sequel comes out and everything is sort of neatly connected to the previous movie. It's almost like a reinvention. My defense of Jaws: The Revenge, if you think of it like this, the scenario of that she goes down to the Bahamas, of all places, and a great white shark follows her there, which is insane, obviously. I think, and if you look at Lorraine Gary's performance, she's a complete lunatic in this book. She's completely lost her mind. She needs serious help. So I think this whole movie is a dream sequence. If you think of Jaws: Revenge as this hallucinogenic dream that Lorraine Gary is having, like maybe in an institution somewhere, it makes perfect sense. We could do a show on Jaws: The Revenge if we want. We could do like tepid cherry bombs. Movies that we just kind of like. Not that we love, movies we kind of like.
Yeah, cherry bombs don't explode, they just smoke.
So Jaws 3D was like really ahead of its time for the things we talked about. It is a very progressive movie in its cautionary attitude towards the dangers of keeping animals in captivity.
Right.
Which in this case, the dangers ultimately for the people rather than the animals, which is a nice twist.
Right.
Bess Armstrong is the strongest female character in a Jaws movie by far.
Yes.
People might say Lorraine Gary, but she's a kook in 4. She's completely lost her mind by that. So I would say by far Bess Armstrong, strongest female character. It's also the most pro-shark movie of all the Jaws movies. It's pro-science. It's anti-corporate.
Yeah.
Also, as a 3D movie, it's ahead of its time because 3D eventually, of course, came back around again. Although it was never as fun as the movies of that era, like Jaws 3.
Yeah, that was a special time.
Anything else that you want to say about Jaws 3D before we wrap it up?
Yeah, you want to hear something disturbing?
Sure.
Okay, so there's this article about a dolphin trainer, and she was working in Golf World in Panama City Beach, Florida, and the one guy in Jaws 3D that works with Kay, the assistant trainer, so like that guy was like a real life trainer guy. Like he actually like worked with these dolphins. So I guess like in 2011, he became a manager and a co-owner at Golf World. Played, I believe his name was Dan in the movie. He had spent years training killer whales and dolphins in SeaWorld in Orlando. And so he ends up at this place. And I'm reading this article, and it's just so messed up. So he he like he jerks off dolphins. And when I say that, and you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. She said that he talked to another female trainer. He talked to her like through the process, which involved tapping the area near the genital slit to induce Comet, that was the dolphin's name, to present his penis, and then stimulating it to ejaculation, catching the semen in a bottle or baggie. And she said that she would cringe as the trainer had to like fish Comet's penis out because he was just starting to learn the process. How awful is that? Anybody ever heard of that job before? I mean, like, my God, like how horrible. Because she's like, because the girl that was working with the dolphins, she thought, you know, this artificial insemination thing was a good idea because they're not transporting dolphins back and forth. But then, like, when she sees what these people jacking off dolphins and stuff, she's like, wait a second, this is horrible. Because she's like, you know, if they just have sex, that's one thing. She goes, but to have this dolphin look at you while you're like, you know, getting them off is like something like out of a horror movie, you know? I mean, like, oh my God, so that's what that guy does, you know? So there's that.
That's how you want to end this episode?
Yeah.
All right. Jaws 3D, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Remember, never apologize for the movies you love.
Of course, they finally did get the money shot.